Hello and thanks for joining me on this episode of Simply Saturday. We are going to make a card that is fast and easy to make using the products that you see here. My name is Julie and this is Stamp with Julie Baum. So today I'm starting with a card base made out of garden green cardstock. I have cut it 4¼ inches by 11 inches, and we're going to make a score line to fold this in half. I'm bringing in my Stampin' trimmer. I don't always show the step of scoring. Sometimes I just talk about it, but in case you're newer to crafting and would like to see how this is done, let me show you. There are two excellent ways that you can do your scoring, and one is our Simply Scored tool, which I use most of the time. If I'm doing something where I'm going to be cutting, trimming, and scoring, then I might use my Stampin' trimmer for all of those steps. So you can't go wrong if you choose the Simply Scored or our paper trimmer, which includes a scoring blade. So I have my gray scoring blade and I have my darker gray, light gray and dark gray. This is the cutting blade. So I'm going to get the cutting blade out of the way and I'm going to put my paper in, slide it through. I want this left edge to be at the 5½ inch mark, which is half of the 11-inch length. And then I'm going to score the paper by running this little scoring blade back and forth 3 or 4 times. At that point, I have a nice score line on the cardstock, and I'm able to make a clean, crisp fold right there on that line. And then I'm going to reinforce it with my bone folder, which just finishes off that nice, clean, crisp fold without your cardstock crinkling or not looking very nice on the fold. So there we have the card base. All right, now I've got some other pieces here that we'll talk about as we go. If you would like to actually see a list of all these products, including the dimensions and measurements of everything I'm using, there's just a little drop-down box below this video that you can click on. It typically will say see more, and you can hit that and the box will open, and then I can share a lot of information with you there. So I am using these, let me make sure of the name. Yes, Mediterranean Blooms paper. Now, this is April of 2025. I did just check the Stampin' Up website. This paper still shows that it's available for purchase, and it does not have a little flag on it saying last chance. So that seems to indicate that it might be around for a little while. So I am going to go ahead and attach this piece to the front of the card. We're going to do several steps today. All of them are easy, and I'm going to give you options on a couple of the steps. So I am gluing this piece of paper onto the front of my card base. I've really enjoyed using these papers, but I have to admit that some of the prints did not get used up as fast as some of the others. And so as I was looking at my designer series paper choices today, I realized that I had several pieces that were decent in size, and prints that I had not used up. This one is kind of I guess I would describe it as a busy lemon print. So it wasn't one that I had reached for a lot in the past, but it is very, very pretty. Now, the lemons will forever make me think of Italy and being in Sorrento, which is famous for its growing of lemons and producing of limoncello and so forth. So when I see this paper, especially when it's teamed up with the flip side, which are blues, it really brings back memories of being in Italy. All right, I am going to now make a layer. We're going to put a little decoration here on the front of the card, and this is where your first option comes in. You can either use just a plain rectangle, and you can see I'm showing it to you in both Lemon Lolly and Daffodil Delight. Both colors are represented in the paper, so you can use either one. So for this next piece, you're going to either use a plain rectangle or you're going to use a piece of cardstock that you have cut with the textured notes dies. These are quickly becoming one of my favorite, and instead of just a plain rectangle of cardstock, I really like the different textures that it puts on it. So I have cut my piece using this size, and that's what I'm going to use. Like I said, if you don't have those dies, you can just use a plain rectangle. All right, then I have a piece of coordinating designer series paper that is exactly the same size as my rectangle, depending on if you used the plain rectangle or the die cut one, either way. And what I'm going to do is tear. So I'm going to start on the long side. It's a little bit easier to hold on to. I'm going to tear with my right hand coming up and my left hand kind of keeping me going straight and not tearing off too much paper. But the reason that I want to tear in an upward fashion is it gives this great little peak of the white texture on the inner core of the paper, and that's what we're looking for. All right, then we're going to turn the corner and tear from there. So we're tearing all 4 edges. Okay, when I get down to the bottom of this one, I can actually just turn and continue tearing. So I'm just taking a little bit of care. I don't want a tear that gets out of control. I want it to basically be maintaining the same rectangle shape, and size-wise, it's going to end up just slightly smaller than my yellow piece. There we have it. Okay. Now that you've done that, you can see that that piece will fit in here, kind of like a little frame. Of course, you can always tear off a little more if you need to. You can't put it back on, so just be careful as you're doing your tearing. I actually want a teeny bit more off of this side, so I'm going to go back in and just take another little smidge off. It's not an exact science. It's very freeform. And because I have a tiny piece, it's getting a little tough right there. All right. Okay, that is going to fit a little bit better. I have another one to show you, and I will put that up at the end. It just has a few little options. There we go. That's what I wanted. Now remember, as you tear, you can always go back and tear more. I will attach this piece to its yellow mat that's going behind it. Like so. All right, the next thing that I'm going to do is a little bit of stamping. So I have a little scrap of white cardstock, and I am using stamps from Simply Said stamp set. Looks like this. It's got all of your basic greetings. I reach for this set a lot. So I'm using birthday wishes with my garden green ink, and I'm just going to stamp it on a scrap. And then we're going to do a little bit of free form fussy cutting. So we don't really have a shape that we're following, but we're going to just roughly go on the outline of our words. So the first thing I'm going to do is just cut this down so I don't have so much to hold. And then with my little paper snips, I'm just going to stay a little ways away from the letters and just quickly cut all the way around. So this doesn't have to be a stressful thing. It's another element of this card that's just very free form. There we have it. This is kind of a nice little way to do an element when you either don't have or don't want to use a punch or a die. Okay, that piece is now going to get added to our little focal point right in the middle. Like so. All right, now this is going to go onto the card right here. I suppose that you could put it in a number of places. I'm going to choose to put it a little lower than halfway down and at a slight angle. And I'm going to attach mine with some dimensionals. You could choose to just put 3 across the middle like that if you want. I'm just going to go ahead and use 4. I don't think it's not such a big piece that it's going to sag in the middle. You could always add one in the middle if you thought it needed it. Okay, so I'm going to remove those backings from my dimensionals. And again, if you're rather new to card making or crafting, dimensionals are just double sticky foam dots that allow you to add elements to your project, and it pops them up just a little bit. All right, so that's the placement for my words. That's the focus of the card right there with this beautiful background of the lemon paper. Let's do a couple things to dress it up. I'm going to take some white baker's twine, and I'm going to be able to do this with 7 inches. I have thin fingers, thin, nimble fingers. So if you need to use a little longer length to do this, but I'm starting with 7 inches and then I'm cutting it in half. So I now have 2 3.5-inch lengths, and I'm going to tie a knot with both lengths at the same time. And then I'm going to do a second one. I really want a chunky knot in the middle. So there you have it, a double piece of twine and a double knot in the middle. This is going to go onto the front of the card, and I'll just use a glue dot, a mini glue dot. I can find the glue dot on the backing paper, take the knot itself and press it down into that glue dot, and then peel it off of the backing. Now the sticky part is right there on the knot, and then I can place this onto my project. So speaking of tearing the edge, I did another video just a couple weeks ago where we also did a torn edge, and I'll put a link to that video right here in the upper right corner if you would like to go and check out that video next. All right, I'm going to trim these down, but I am going to do them at different lengths. So I've got a shorter and a longer one on this side, and a shorter but not too short and longer one on this side. All right, so that I get that look. I'm really happy with that. We're also going to do some embellishments, but let's do the inside of the card. I do have a surprise for you on that. So let's do the inside, and then we'll come back and add our embellishments. So I was still going crazy for this paper, and I love how the papers coordinate. This is the back side of that. This floral is beautiful, and that is the back side of the floral. So I went ahead and cut this piece just a tiny bit smaller than the inside of the card. I'm going to glue this whole panel to the inside. This is rare that at least for me, that I would put a large piece of decorative paper on the inside of the card. Sometimes I do a strip. Sometimes I just put a white panel on the inside, which you could totally do if you don't want to add the designer series paper. But I've got this piece. I'm trying to determine if this has a direction to it. It might, and if it does, this is the direction. All right, so I'm going to glue this right inside, just below the crease. Like I said, it is cut only a smidge smaller than the actual card inside itself and glue that down. Look how pretty that is. I mean, that could be the card front, obviously. This, in this case, is the inside. All right, and then now we need a white panel so that we can do our message. And so once again, here's your option. You can either use a plain white rectangle and attach it right here with that lovely patterned paper frame, or you can take another die from Stitched Notes, which is what I did. I took this little bit larger die and die cut my white rectangle so it has that beautiful texture going around the edges. This is the piece that I'm going to glue to the inside. I am going to stamp on it. Let's do that first. From the same set of stamps, I'm now going to stamp Let's Celebrate, which you'll see barely fits on this. So it was meant to be. It's sized exactly right. All right, I'm coming down a little bit from the very top of my white piece and stamping. Like so. This is now going to get attached to that absolutely fantastic inner panel that we created with our paper. Look at what a simple concept and yet how pretty and how different. I can honestly say that I do not recall ever showing you a card that had a full panel of designer series paper on the inside as this one does. It won't be the last time that I use this trick. All right, there we have our completed card, except for some embellishments. Now, on the first one that I did, I used some adhesive-backed glitter sequins, which I'll show you. They were long retired. They came out at Christmas time, maybe 2 years ago. I loved them so much that I did stock up on them, and I'm enjoying using them. For this card, I thought I would show you something different so that you can see two finished projects. These are the adhesive-backed solid gems, and I'm going to pick a couple of these yellow ones. I'm going to use the large because this print is so busy. I don't want them to get lost. So, using my Take Your Pick tool, I can just get underneath the gem so that I don't sacrifice the sticky backing that's already on it. And I'm going to do 3 of these. One just above my tag, one on my tag, and the last one just below. It just gives it a little pop of interest, a little bit more dimension, and even though these are kind of matte, it does give it a little bit of shine. Ooh, does that make sense? There you have the front, and once again the inside. Let me show the other one that's just a tiny bit different because of the embellishments. So this one, I used these glittery adhesive-backed sequins, if you can see those. That's the only difference. So that is our Simply Saturday card for today. I really appreciate you watching, and it is totally my joy to bring these ideas and hopefully inspiration to you. I would appreciate if you do open that box below this video and check out the wonderful information that I have for you there, including how to find out more about the products and measurements of this particular card. Until next time, happy stamping.